Hello and welcome to another episode of SuperConnectivity. I am your host, Charlie, the Professor Usser, and with me as always is...
Phil Parrish.
Hey, Phil. Great to have you. So, interesting news that just came out. Would you like to let us know what that was, Phil?
Yeah, and I'll even let our listeners know. I just put it up on the SuperConnectivity Facebook page, too. Is that... Here, let me pull it up here. Yeah, ABC has announced Marvel's Captain America, 75 heroic years. Will air Tuesday, January 19th at 8 p.m. Eastern, just before the Season 2 premiere of Agent Carter.
So that is very interesting. On a lot of levels, one of the reasons why that's kind of very interesting to me is that it makes me think that we're going to, I have been thinking because, by sheer force of will, it was my hope that they were going to be introducing a lot more magic into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I thought that Agent Carter might be a great place to do that. You could introduce Monaco, the Prince of Magic. You could introduce Agatha Harkness. As I said, we got our introduction of magic last episode of Mavis, where we showed that the Kree technology forms a pentagram when it's opening up the space-time portal. And so I thought that would be a very interesting line to go. But opening up Agent Carter with this Captain America 75th anniversary makes me think that Agent Carter is going to focus much more on the upcoming Captain America 3 Civil War plotline. Now, I'm not quite sure what they're going to do there, except for, of course, the possibility that they're going to basically show what I imagine is the inception of S.H.I.E.L.D. and this recognition of the need to keep quiet superhumanity, which, of course, may well lead to Inhumans and magic users as well in that. But the idea that, that actually makes me think that maybe we are going to get some Golden Age heroes in here. We've suggested that maybe Isaiah Bradley could show up, but more to the point, the Wizard, Miss America, Slowpoke Jones, even all could show up here in their own superheroic fashion, and have an interesting conflict with the SSR. Which, of course, becomes S.H.I.E.L.D., most notably probably because of the Hydra influence, opening up this structure so that we get to this point where we understand, leading out from Agent Carter, going into the rest of S.H.I.E.L.D. and then Captain America next year. This idea how supervillains or superheroes have been in this conflicted state for so many years, If we open up the idea that essentially the SSR became S.H.I.E.L.D. because it was agreed we have to quiet the panic of superheroes, of aliens, of all these things, that's going to feed much more directly into the narrative of Civil War when we get to it. It would be very interesting to see, a young Powers Booth, or, well, maybe not Powers Booth. He might be he might not be old enough to have been a character in this storyline there. Gideon Malik, but who knows? Maybe we'll meet Gideon Malik's dad. Although I would very much like to see Zola showing up in this, in the early, in those early stages, moving S.H.I.E.L.D. to Hydra. And of course, and there is this thing, since we've gotten this ancient Hydra origin, it's long been my contention within Hickman's overarching storyline of S.H.I.E.L.D. that we are going to get a Hydra analog. Because when we last left it, we actually had the Order of the S.H.I.E.L.D. broken into two factions, one led by Da Vinci, the other led by Newton. Newton, of course, being the evil one. And of course, Tesla being sort of the space between. I hate Tesla. Yeah, man, I'm the guy on the internet who is not a fan of Tesla. I believe Edison was the better scientist. Because if nothing else, Edison got things done. Edison knew you had to write it down. Now, maybe Edison stole a lot of ideas, but you know what? If Edison hadn't stolen those ideas might never have gotten around. So I'm going to defend Edison, and I'm way down on Tesla. But of course, in the comic book universe, Tesla is always the good guy, always the benighted hero, and not the supervillain that I contend he probably was. I contend that he was probably a relatively sociopathic supervillain who, if he had more gumption, might have actually built weapons of mass destruction and slaughtered a lot of people, or just given it to people to slaughter a lot of people, not thinking about the overall ends of it. I think that Edison, probably could have built more bombs, but opted to make movies instead because he realized that, even though I don't think Edison necessarily had a qualm about building bombs, but that there was more money in people being alive and buying products than the short-term gain of money you'd get just by building weapons. So that's my take on Edison and why I think he's the true hero of the story. Some men bring the world forward, others just want to build death rays for their own self-aggrandizement. See, classic supervillain thing, Tesla. He wanted to self-aggrandize himself. That was his complaint with Edison, was that he wasn't getting enough respect for who he was. And Edison was basically, look, dude, yeah, my name's on it. I'm the one pushing things forward. And for what it's worth, it was a team effort at Edison, and nobody got to have his name on it except for Edison. And, you can say, well, maybe I deserve to have my name on it. Then you know what? Go get your own backers, Tesla. And Tesla had his backers and still didn't make anything of himself. So that tells you all you need to know about Tesla. Anyone saying that Tesla had the great inventions that would have freed the world, you're fooling yourself. We're going to get lots of cards about this one. Let me tell you, lots of cards and letters about this one. If you think Tesla would have saved the world, you are mistaken, because Tesla had Westinghouse behind him, and everyone says, well, Westinghouse didn't want free energy. It's like, no, they didn't have free energy, not because there was no money in it, but because it doesn't work. You can't have free energy. Basic thermodynamics. You can't get more energy out of something than goes into it. And if you want to have free energy, basically, as I've always said, you know how much money there is in free energy? Trust me, Westinghouse would have been more than happy to build devices that ran on free energy, because you still had to buy the dang devices, Uh-huh. Edison electrified the world not to sell electricity, but to sell light bulbs, because it doesn't do you much good to have a light bulb if you don't have electricity. It doesn't do you much good to, you need, electricity is the afterthought. It's we have television stations. Television stations grew up because television manufacturers needed something to put on them. Mm-hmm. Same thing with radio stations. People created radio stations, and the radio stations were owned by radio manufacturers because, you can build these things, but, what you need something to put on them. And so the only way you're going to get people to want them is to have content. I think that's actually probably one of the flaws in our modern internet economy, is that, that people started producing content for computers rather than the computer companies creating content to sell computers. I think that maybe that's sort of a flaw in the business model, and that's why there's been such a hard time trying to monetize the computer business model, because it's based on this idea of, well, we'll create content and we'll make money off of the content, rather than we'll make content and we'll make money off the devices, which, incidentally, is Apple's model. Apple sells the content, but really Apple doesn't care what you play on your phone. They're going to create an iPhone and you can play music on it, but they just want you to buy a dang phone. They want you to buy an Apple computer. And so they're going to make things that work well with their Apple computers. And that's your business model. That is your solid business model, and it's worked well for Apple. And I think and it's based on that old school business model that you had with televisions and radios and movie theaters, which used to all be owned by movie studios, which is that you built this thing and then you made the content to go on that thing. So anyway, where was I? This is a comic book podcast.
How did we get here?
Oh, yes, Tesla. Curse him. Anyway, so getting back to Agent Carter, the Ancient Order of the Shield, and the Ancient Order of the Hydra. Now, of course, we have had established here in the MC universe that Hydra is this ancient organization. But of course, that makes this interesting point that if Hydra is this ancient organization that predates S.H.I.E.L.D., and S.H.I.E.L.D. became essentially an offshoot of Hydra, shouldn't it follow too then that maybe S.H.I.E.L.D. is likewise an ancient organization? And I'm hoping that's something we're going to see possibly revealed in our new Agent Carter. Because, of course, I think that's the great thing about Agent Carter is that it does give us this chance to kind of see some old school things, and have hints and implications at things that will eventually come into it. Now, one of the things they are introducing in Agent Carter, which is interesting, is the Magia is going to be a character in Agent Carter from what the rumors are, which actually works along with the fact that Whitney Frost is a member of, is going to be one of our villainesses here because she does have ties to Count Nefaria and the Magia there. So it will be interesting to see how the Magia fits into the Hydra dynamic. And again, how that builds up into creating of S.H.I.E.L.D. Because I got to get the feeling that we're going to get, our Agent Carter short, which ends at the inception of S.H.I.E.L.D. I got to think that that's what we're leading towards, And of course, we have our Zodiac formula in that short that we're still waiting to get back to. There's a lot of interesting things they can do with Agent Carter, but my big hope is that we're going to see some Golden Age heroes here. It's got to be all in the can, so it's kind of disappointing that we haven't heard more, except for the fact that Emma Frost is going to, Madame Mask is going to be a character in it. Although it's interesting because apparently she's like sort of a Hedy Lamarr evil scientist actress character. But that also means that her face is not scarred. So if she's not wearing the mask yet, one wonders if there's going to be an issue with it at the end where her face does get scarred.
Yeah.
And that leads to her wearing the mask and swearing vengeance against Agent Carter. Dottie, our Proto Black Widow, is going to be back in this. Dottie Underwood. So that's going to be great. I really admired the actress who played Dottie Underwood because she really captured certain quirks of a Russian speaking American that if you don't know, living in New York, I know several Russian actresses who work hard to do their proper American accents, but you do note certain quirks, and it was very nice to see them that she was able to capture those quirks very nicely in Agent Carter. So I'm looking forward to seeing Dottie Underwood return as our Black Widow, our Proto Black Widow, and I'm looking forward to seeing Whitney Frost. So and of course, really looking forward to seeing Angie and how she plays into the whole storyline, because she's the best gal pal of our intrepid hero, and of course we've got Jarvis coming back. I don't know if we have Howard Stark coming back, though I assume he will be in at least one episode. But I know it's mostly going to be the Jarvis and Peggy show, and that will be fun, as it always is. What are you thinking about for Agent Carter here?
I was really hoping, what you were saying a week or two ago about you wish they were bringing magic into this whole thing, and with the whole Madame Mask thing. But I guess you think they save all that big stuff, the first reveal of everything for the movies?
Well, I mean, that's an interesting question. I mean, and I guess there's probably this argument that says that they do. But like I said, you can reveal stuff without actually, you know, um, without necessarily revealing it. Like I said, I mean, to me, as I've always said, magic has always been part of the MCU. From the minute that Erskine says, what's good becomes great, what's bad becomes worse, about the super soldier serum. That's sympathetic magic. That is magic he's discussing there. Because there's no objective good or bad. There's only, that's a moral decision. But the moral decision had a mystical, or the scientific process had a mystical outcome. You had the same thing with the Incredible Hulk, this idea that rage fuels the Hulk, and so the Hulk grows and the matter of the Hulk gets the stronger he gets. And this is this, again, it's a very sympathetic magic idea. So to me, magic has always been in the MCU. And then when we had our scene in Maveth, where they are, opening the portal with the pentagram. Now it could have been a little more on the nose, or they could have had it show the seal of Doctor Strange. But of course, the seal of Doctor Strange isn't a portal. A pentagram would be more appropriate for a portal of conjuring. And that's what they gave us. They went and they showed how they put that symbol in there just as a side thing. And they could have done it in a lot of different ways, but they did something. And as a point of order, they did something that was really obviously going to make you go, "Oh, hey, that's a pentagram. That's a magic thing." So to me, that was them introducing magic. It's kind of like the Inhumans, where you start with this what do you call it, you just start with the blue guy in the cooler, and then you have the diviner, and then you have all these things that are introducing what are big elements of the Marvel universe that will eventually be a movie. The Inhumans movie is still very much on the slate. And all of that, of course, got introduced in the TV series. So while I think they have held off on things, and it's an obvious point of order, even though you didn't get the reveal that Hydra had infiltrated S.H.I.E.L.D. and didn't actually get Hydra mentioned until Winter Soldier, you really got a lot of hints about it with Ward and with Garrett and everything else up to that point, where there were clues available, so that if you were watching it, you could have figured out that Garrett was the clairvoyant earlier, before the movie came out. You could have figured out that, and of course, as I said, Caterpillar always struck me or Centipede kind of struck me as a Hydra idea in and of itself as well, And I always, in fact, I remember when they first said Centipede, it's like 100 legs, 100 heads, what's the difference? It's it was very much struck me as a Hydra idea. So I think they do introduce these things subtly. And like I said, you might get these things without actually getting them. Like I said, you could have Agatha Harkness show up and, be this person around which things happen, but you never have her say, "This is what I am and this is what I'm doing," or you have it all be very dismissed, because of course, it's the old psychic makes the prediction, and did the psychic really predict it, or did they know, what really happened there can be left kind of ambiguous, As I always say, it's always an interesting thing in television, which is that people have a hard time, not let alone the existence of mysticism. I mean, things like Santa Claus tend to be not denied outright on television. That if someone talks about Santa Claus on television, there's always something like, wait, was that really Santa? It's like, as we're moving towards Christmas, folks, you'll see a lot of that. So that's the real downside to having these winter hiatuses, is no Christmas episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I want them to go. I want them to go rescue Santa. I want the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. to save Christmas. That's what I want. Come on, Coulson. Yes. He's a mutie. Everyone knows that. Santa was a mutie. Which is why they can't do a Christmas episode yet. Not till they get the mutants back from Fox.
Hey, this is our Christmas episode. This is probably the last one before Christmas.
Oh yes! Hey, happy Christmas, one and all. Everywhere it's Christmas, everywhere it's fun.
So Santa's a mutant, you say?
That's actually from Ambush Bug. Where they did a Christmas theme in the back, and they said they shouldn't have called him a mutie, which was just Santa's back and he's angry. It was just one of the little ads for a book, for an upcoming book, quote unquote, that they had in the back of an Ambush Bug. I think it was Son of Ambush Bug. Big fan of Ambush Bug. Yeah, that was an interesting. That was actually one of the things when we were discussing that. Actually, I don't think it got picked. Although I haven't read what you actually picked, was the question of who was the better character, or like Ambush Bug versus Deadpool or Harley Quinn. And actually, it was a very interesting thing. You see, Ambush Bug actually, as a metafictional character, was way more powerful in his use of his powers than Deadpool ever is. And I haven't really read Harley Quinn, so I don't know what she does. The person who's actually is closest to the way that Ambush Bug uses his metafictional nature was She-Hulk when she was metafictional in John Byrne's run. Because She-Hulk would cross over panels and use the structure of comic books to her advantage in what she was doing, in a way that Deadpool never really does. Deadpool's aware of his fictional nature, but you don't actually see that. You don't see him utilizing his fictional nature to his advantage. And this is actually something that we kind of see with Gwenpool as well, where Gwenpool, she's aware of the fictional nature of everyone else. And it's interesting for her, because Gwenpool doesn't think she's a comic book character. She thinks she's a real person in a comic book universe. And so her existence is fully within a reality of that comic book universe, but that she has been transported into. Whereas Deadpool is a fictional character in a fictional universe, aware of his own fictionality. And then when you had She-Hulk and Ambush Bug, they were fictional characters in a fictional universe, aware of their own fictionality, but able to manipulate that fictional universe to their own ends. So that, for example, when Ambush Bug battles the Interferer, he had the ability that no matter what the Interferer changed, Ambush Bug could always sort of move it back to where it was supposed to be, because it was fictional. So Ambush Bug could reassert reality on quote unquote reality on the Interferer. And likewise, one of my favorite things is, I believe it was, the Interferer destroys the universe. Basically, they go to the beyond, and Ambush Bug finds a pencil in his pocket that was left by the artist, and so he draws himself, a table and chairs. Then he leans back and falls through the paper and goes back to the real world. And that's a level of fictionality and metafictionality that you don't see in Deadpool. And I don't know if you see it in Harley Quinn. I don't think you do. I'm willing to think that Harley Quinn is much more akin to the way Deadpool is presented, if she mentions her metafictionality at all.
Very rarely, but she doesn't really even break the fourth wall like Deadpool really does.
Yeah. Well, but that's also an interesting thing with Deadpool. I don't know if Deadpool necessarily breaks the fourth wall as much as he talks to other characters about their fictionality.
Yeah.
Or even really, Deadpool doesn't even really talk to characters about their fictionality. Normally what he does is he just mentions things he's aware of because he is aware of the other books. Which is something that, Ambush Bug did too, but Ambush Bug, it's an interesting thing when you break down the way that different characters deal with their metafictionality. Ambush Bug, so Deadpool, Squirrelpool, and Gwenpool. Gwenpool is actually a completely different status, because Gwenpool is a is in the way that she's been presented so far is as a real person transported into a fictional universe who perceives that universe as fictional, which essentially just means she's a sociopath. Because, of course, that's how sociopaths are. They see the world as fictional, that other people, other things are just created for them to observe, but they're the only beings that actually have a reality to themselves, which makes for an interesting commentary on the nature of superheroic violence in its own way. Is this way that we do see superheroic violence? You never think about, Bob the Hydra agent and his wife and kids and all those kind of things. That every time you punch a guy out, that he has a family. Even Agent Ward has a family. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not a good family, but a family nonetheless. Although it was funny, I was listening to Neil Gaiman talking recently about the Sandman books and how people came up to him and told him how great his books were, how it was such a wonderful dysfunctional family. And he had never heard the term dysfunctional family before, and he realized it was because in England, that's just what they call families, because they don't have functional families in England. Of course, that's probably true throughout the world, is that there are no families that are truly functional. We're all just dysfunctional in our own way. I think that was Tolstoy who said every family is miserable in its own way, or something along those lines. No, it wasn't Tolstoy. It was the playwright, not the novelist. Oh, what's his name? Russian playwright did Uncle Vanya. Like name. Not Tolstoy, the other guy. Chekhov. Thank you.
Why did you say the Star Trek guy?
Yeah, the Star Trek guy. Yes. Every family's miserable in his own way. Although actually every family's miserable in his own way may actually be Tolstoy from one of his other books, or from somebody else's book completely that's not a Russian novelist at all. Possibly from Anna Karenina, I don't know. Actually, Anna Karenina is a Russian novel. I think it was written by Tolstoy. So actually it probably was Tolstoy. I think it was Anna Karenina. But you know what? Russian literature nerds, correct me on this. Which Russian writer am I thinking about? Anyway. This is a comic book podcast, right? Okay. That's why it's SuperConnectivity, folks, because we connect all across the spectrum. Okay, moving right along. One thing I did want to talk about, because I know a gentleman I have recently met, I saw a photo of him on Facebook with 3D glasses on. So I think someone recently saw a little indie art film coming out that apparently Quentin Tarantino is all upset about, because apparently his indie art film is getting overshadowed by this other indie art film. I think it's called like Galaxy Battle or Gas Giant Fight or something like that. What's it called, Phil?
Star Wars: The Force Awakens. Yes, I went and saw it. 10:30 this morning, yeah.
Oh, 10:30 this morning, wow.
Hey, that's I held myself back. The theater I went to, the first showing of the day was like 6:30 this morning.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I bet you packed.
It wasn't too bad. The theater I go to, I don't think they ever really sell out, but at 10:30 in the morning, I think I was like one of like 10 or 12 people in the theater.
Okay, well that's pretty good, man. So but here's the thing I wanted to mention about this, because this was actually this thing I was thinking about, because it was this question about the redemption of Anakin, because this is this thing that was striking me, and it ties into Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. a bit, and the possible redemption of Grant Ward, or if there is anything redeemable about these characters. There is this scene with in the third movie, the third prequel. I'm forgetting what it was. Attack of the Clones. Was it Attack of the Clones or was it Revenge of the Sith? Was the third one?
Revenge of the Sith was the third one.
And of course, Anakin goes, and they show that he goes to the Jedi Academy, and they show the little kids, and then they cut away. And of course, the thing everyone assumes is that Anakin killed the kids. Well, if you think about it, we never actually see him kill the kids. And it's sort of like, as in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., we never actually see Grant Ward kill the dog. You know, we know that him and Garrett both had the dog in their sights. And then we know that someone killed the dog. But we don't know that it was Ward, and we don't know that it was Garrett. We just know... And I guess to some extent, even maybe the point is it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if Anakin killed the kids or not. He still became Vader, except in the sense that if he doesn't kill the kids, if maybe he just has the kids leave, because that was the line he couldn't cross, you know. It gives a point of redemption for the character later on. If they ever do a episode 3.5, you know, or 3.1, you know, where they tell the stories that kind of happened in the middle parts, you know, where, hey, we can get Sam Jackson back as Mace Windu, because he seemed to have survived as well. But there seemed to have been a lot of Jedi that got away from Vader. For a guy who was supposed to kill all the Jedi, he didn't seem to be very good on his job, which makes me wonder if maybe the kids got away too. Because as we see, you know, both Yoda escape and Obi-Wan's living on his own home planet, you know. Doesn't even change his name much. He's just Ben Kenobi now. I'm not Obi-Wan Kenobi. I'm Ben Kenobi. I'm his cousin from the south side of Tatooine. Oh, yeah, and of course we all move to the planet you grew up on, Vader, which, you know, again, makes you think that maybe Vader was not as evil as people always implied, and that, you know, which of course goes to the entire idea that as Crack will tell you every third episode, that maybe the Empire was not as evil as everyone implies too. You know, that maybe the Empire, for good or for all it does, maybe at times actually did good as well. And they make the point that I have made for years, is I've always said I really hope they explain this, is did Vader free the slaves? You know, did Vader at the end of, at the founding of the Empire, free the slaves as he always dreamed he would? Because of course, when we get to A New Hope, there does not seem to be slavery on Tatooine. There's no mention of slaves, you know. And even though people call Princess Leia a slave girl, there really is no evidence that she actually is a slave. She's actually a hostage who is being put in an embarrassing situation by Jabba the Hutt, because she displayed, you know, because she offended him, and he's the, you know, ruler of that planet. But there's really no evidence of any slavery beyond the fact that she is a prisoner and held in chains and dressed in a metal bikini. There doesn't, you know, we don't see her doing anything as a slave. We don't see any ill treatment of her beyond the ill treatment of being held in chains, you know. And, you know, and even the suggestion of sexualization, I've always felt was a little misplaced with that, because of course Jabba's a Hutt, and what about a Hutt would have any sexual attraction to a human woman? You know, when you think about it, like if you're a Hutt, it's like nothing is going to be matching up with whatever the heck Leah's got. So that's actually got to be kind of basically, like, if you're a Hutt, you got to look at humanity as pretty much how humanity would look at a Hutt. You know, we see this gross little worm. They see this crazy little lanky monkey, you know, and it's like, you know. I got to imagine if you're a Hutt, that's like, because we do see that Hutts have genders. There are male and female Hutts, because we see that in the first episode, the Hutt at that time has a Hutt spouse, and they, you know, wave and cheer on those pod races and whatnot. And Hutts are clearly the dominant species on this planet, you know, at least, or somehow managed to put themselves up into that spot. So one imagines that they are native to the planet. And anyway, so when Jabba takes Princess Leia, you know, and holds her, you know, but there's really nothing slavery about it. You know, we don't really see any slaves. We see that there are people who work for Jabba, but nobody is ever referred to as a slave, and nobody is seemingly forced to do anything. Everyone, you know, one imagines that the guy with the weird snake head is, you know, being paid maybe everyone else there is just a prisoner or just, a go-go dancer, girl who's fallen on hard times and has to make her living, being a Hutt go-go dancer because I guess if you're a Hutt, you got to keep these half-naked women around because all the crazy monkey beings you rule over kind of find that interesting, and they're like, okay, yeah, this is what you guys like. Well, here they are,
Mm-hmm.
That's my take on the Hutts. I got to imagine that the Hutts basically did a lot of things to appease or to make a show of power to the beings that they ruled over that were not to the Hutts themselves particularly important. Which, even to its own extent, maybe shows why they don't really seem to care that much about all the beings running around them because, the Hutts are operating on they have different motivations, And so that's how Leia can drop on Jabba and strangle him out, choke him out at the end of, spoilers for Return of the Jedi here, choke Jabba out at the end of Return of the Jedi, or the beginning of Return of the Jedi, sorry.
I don't think anyone's worried about spoilers for that one right now, Charlie.
So that's an interesting. So to me, that's sort of what's interesting in the new Force Awakens and everything else is are we going to get some more of the backstory of what happened between Episode 3 and 4? I don't expect that there was much in the Force Awakens. Although, if you'd like to spoil, feel free. Did you like the movie, Phil?
Yeah, I liked it. I don't know how much I should say. I don't want to spoil a lot, but there's a good mix of old and there's a new stuff. New stuff. We meet some new characters.
You can tell me? Did we get is Jar Jar redeemed?
All right. I'll give you the spoiler. There's no mention. There's no appearance of Jar Jar Binks at all.
He has been wiped from the annals of history. Well, I'm looking forward to it. It does look like a lot of fun. It should be a good film. I'll probably see it in about 3 weeks.
I was gonna say once we're done, if you want me to give you some spoilers, but I don't want to.
No, it's okay. I think everyone knows that the Jar Jar doesn't that the Drunken Fist Secret Master Jar Jar fan theory that came out just before The Force Awakens came out probably does not get a lot of play in this episode.
And one other spoiler I'll give you that doesn't really spoil anything, but there's no mid credit scene or end credit scene, so you don't have to sit through the credits at the end.
Yeah. Well, this is a Star Wars. This is a Disney film, but it's not a Marvel. There's not. I would not expect an end credits.
Yeah, that's the only reason I sat through the credits because I wasn't sure since it was a Disney movie if they'd try to sneak one in there.
Trait, although, and of course, one more thing missing from the Fantastic Four.
No.
End credits scene.
Yeah.
Not even a Flash Gordon Ming the Merciless's blood forming a question mark at the end of Flash Gordon, which is the first time you actually had an end credit scene. Maybe not the first, but that's the first end credit scene I really remember is the old Flash Gordon film. The 80s Flash Gordon film. Still a great film, by the way, with a soundtrack by Queen. To my mind, it is still the quintessential Flash Gordon, and the Flash Gordon by which all other Flash Gordons should be judged, although there's not a lot of Flash Gordons out there to judge it against. But it has the end credit scene where after it seems like everyone has won, then you cut to the Ming the Merciless's blood start moving around, and the idea that Ming may still be back. So anyway, so we don't get like a end credit scene of Vader popping up at the end saying "I'm back, kids," or Kylo Ren or Luke Skywalker.
Well, you get a scene at the end where I don't know, kind of a cliffhanger where you're like, when's episode 8 come out?
Yes, well, I'm sure they're going to give us a cliffhanger because this is still This is still, it's a Lucasfilm, and that's typical for them to give us a cliffhanger. Episode 1 kind of ends tied up neatly, but everything else sort of left us wondering what happens next.
This definitely will.
Well, good. As two there are. Yes, but So anyway, but as I was saying, one thing that was fun that just came out was we had an epic rap battle: Deadpool versus Boba Fett. Did you get the chance to see that on YouTube yet?
I didn't watch it. I saw the link, but I didn't get a chance to watch it yet.
Oh, it's good. It does great by both characters, Boba Fett and Deadpool. Deadpool basically making the point that Boba Fett, you don't do nothing. You've got like 8 lines, one of which is yeah, poor Boba Fett. But he was great in the Christmas special, so everyone remember that. Yeah. So anyway, that's the Force Awakens. But it was nice to see. It was nice to see a Deadpool versus Boba Fett, just in the sense that you have the character under the Fox banner crossing over with a character under the Disney banner. Although one thing that kind of strikes me as interesting in the Deadpool film coming up is exactly how they're going to play with the fourth wall breaking. Because we do see in the promos that he is very much talking to the camera, which is an interesting thing to do, where he is talking directly to the camera. Deadpool in the comics, only talks to the camera periodically, usually at the end or the beginning of an episode. Normally, he's just talking to his captions, back when he used to have the 2 voices in his head. Something else that's a little missing from the new Deadpool book. Although I do like in our previews for the new Deadpool book, we've got all the Deadpools wearing different colors, and it sort of reminds you of the now memmed to death Batman of many colors episode of Batman. Oh boy.
Oh, but during before the Force Awakens, I saw trailers for the new Star Trek movie, X-Men Apocalypse, Batman v Superman, and Captain America: Civil War.
Oh, cool! So, watching all 4 of those films in trailers together, what are your takes on them?
They all look pretty good, because I was like, man, usually go to the movie. Sometimes you get a trailer where you're just like, oh, I got to sit through this. They all look good. I've seen people online complaining about Star Trek, saying it looks, just like a generic action movie now, and, not as good as like previous Star Treks and stuff.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I haven't been I still haven't seen Star Trek Into Darkness.
Neither.
I've only seen parts of the rebooted Star. You know what my problem with the whole Star Trek reboot is? Is that if you wanted to tell first off, if you wanted to retell the tale of the original series characters, you could do that. There was a lot of time between the last episode of Star Trek and the first movie, where they could have told some pretty great adventures with characters, with new actors in those roles. Establishing the history and working with it. Along those same lines, you could have told, what I thought would have been cool is they could have told the story of, done some movies about Pike and his crew.
But did you see the part in the first reboot where they explain why history is different now?
Well, yes, and that was really dumb. I think everyone agrees that was really dumb, because the guy, his planet has been destroyed, so he goes to the past and destroys someone else's planet, which is okay, but wouldn't it have been smarter to just save your own planet if you go back in time to just sort of say, hey, just so everyone knows, this planet's going to get destroyed under these circumstances, so don't do that.
That part is stupid, but I'm saying the actual physical act of him and old Spock, Leonard Nimoy, coming back in time is what altered the timeline, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, first off, as Dr. Doom said in Squirrel Girl this week, it's real amateurish to not have a chronoton protection when you're traveling back in time and altering your own timeline. Because, I mean, that's the thing. If the guy alters his timeline that much, then why isn't he Marty McFly fading out? You know what I mean? So, like, you alter the timeline. Now, nothing that happens in the future is going to happen the same way. So why is he even still there?
See, I always think there's like a flaw in any kind of like time travel story logic, because it's like if they change if they change history enough, then they'll never have traveled back in time. So then everything would snap back to normal, but then they would go back and.
Well, this is why, and this is what I'll say, is that this is why I have nothing but respect for the time travel depicted in Back to the Future. Because they actually establish, if you watch it, there are really strict rules to how their paradoxes work, which is that there is this that when you make a change to the past, it doesn't affect the future right away. That essentially time has to elapse before it can affect the future. That's why, Marty doesn't just immediately disappear when he changes his parents' past. And why he is the last one to fade, because he is the youngest. So he was further along in the future. So that when he, that basically it took time for all the changes to catch up with him. And then, of course, once, people make this point that, his memories are going to be different, except for the fact that his memories are going to eventually catch up with what he's changed, because eventually time will catch up with him, and that is, and they do this repeatedly throughout the series. Anytime they do time travel and they're altering the past or the future, they do show that it takes time for things to change. That there is this very logical physics to it, and how they deal with paradoxes, and essentially they deal with paradoxes in a very interesting way in that too, in the sense that when Marty goes back in the past, he's altering his future, but but anything he's doing is occurring. It's occurring. Yeah. It may wipe himself out of existence, but he's taking his actions, and so Now, I guess one could argue that, 400 years in the future, that time just hadn't caught up with the guy who went back in the past yet when he destroyed Vulcan. So, it's possible that, that he did eventually fade from time if he had been allowed to stick around that long. But no, I guess, I kind of felt that it was, in the reboot of Star Trek, that it was, I guess it kind of struck me as kind of something that didn't need to be done. It's like, if you wanted to reboot Star Trek, you can reboot Star Trek. So, for example, you can do a Kirk and Spock at the Academy. You can, that's a story you can do. You could do, you could do, Spock and Scotty under Pike, because both of them, at least in the expanded universe, served on the Enterprise at the same time. If you ever read the book Vulcan's Glory, which is actually one of my favorite Star Trek novels, Vulcan's Glory.
Yeah, but there's always the argument. It's like, if you're gonna reboot Star Trek or do something in the past like that, everyone's gonna say, yeah, you want all of them on the Enterprise, you want Kirk, you want Spock,
Yeah, in that case, then tell Star Trek Year 6. Mm-hmm. Is that so hard to do? Just to say, okay, so it's a 5-year mission. I think even with the cartoons, we've only got 4 years. Let's do year 5. Let's do year 6. There was a lot of time they could explore with the Star Trek crew, with the original Star Trek crew, where they could have had some really interesting and exciting adventures. Anytime between the last episode of the cartoon and the first, and the appearance of V'ger, I mean, and of course, this is the thing, is that the novels and even the movies and other books have dealt with that in-between period a lot, and there's great stories that can be told in them. But I think what it is they wanted this young Kirk, and that's the thing, is that I think they wanted to youth it up a bit, which I think is,
yes.
It's like, I don't know. What is wrong with having a seasoned captain? That's all I'm going to say. And more to the point, I still don't understand why Kirk is captain. It's like, well, Spock, you have seniority. Pretty much everyone has seniority over him. Everyone has more training than him. I don't understand why Uhura is not the captain instead of Kirk in that reboot. And heck, Scotty's an actual Starfleet officer at that point in the story, isn't he? Because he's already stationed in the place and doing engineering stuff and being, the great engineer Montgomery Scott at that point. Why isn't he captain? What is Kirk doing to say, hey, I'm Kirk, so I get to be captain of the Enterprise? It's like, no one should be following you. No one should be listening to you. No one should be saying you should be captain just because you're the white guy in the room. Really, if anything, this is the future. That should be kind of a mark against you. It's like, hey, we're the first, modern day version of Star Trek. So I'm the white guy. I'll be in charge, okay? Oh. What is this? Reed Richards and the Illuminati? I'm just saying. But we have gotten way off track this week.
Yeah.
But anyway, the Star Wars reboot looks good.
Yes, it's good.
Yes. Okay. Is there anything else we want to talk about this week, Phil?
No, I think we've hit everything.
We've hit everything, and this is a slow week too, man. Phil, where can they talk to you if they want to talk you out of doing these episodes with me and say, Phil, you're better than this? If people want to tell Phil that he's better than this, where can they tell you that?
If you want to talk to me about the brilliance of Charlie Esser and your just looking forward to his upcoming battle with Lilith Hellfire on the upcoming Marvel vs. DC special, probably coming in January, you can email me, nightwingpdp@gmail.com, and on Twitter, I am @nightwingpdp.
And of course, you can always write to me at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. And you can follow me on Twitter, where we live tweet Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and soon to be Agent Carter. And just recently, we live tweeted the final winter break episode of Supergirl, in which I asked the very important question: why is Supergirl's heat vision blue? Is it hotter than Superman's red heat vision? Think about it. To follow along with those fun tweets, you can do that at Charlie Esser. That's CharlieEsser. Look for the 2 E's in the middle for quality. And that is Super Connectivity for this week. Please connect with us again next. Good night.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.